Hello and welcome to Off Chain. My name is Jimmy Song, and here's the technical roundup for today, November 13th, 2017. All right, so a lot of things happening today. I talked about it a lot yesterday, but basically the main thing today is Bitcoin Cash is going to have a difficulty adjustment hard fork later today in about 4.5 hours. I guess that makes it about noon Eastern time. Anyway, that's going to be a big deal because check it out. Let's take a look at the number of blocks being found and things. Oh, first of all, it's way more profitable now to mine on the original chain. Like I said yesterday, there was a difficulty adjustment after 2016 blocks that happened. It was way more profitable to mine on Bitcoin Cash, and then it suddenly flipped over because so many miners were mining it. They went through 2016 blocks relatively quickly. And you can see that in the last something like 17 hours, there's been 20 blocks, right? There's been maybe a tiny bit over 1 block an hour since then. This is not triggering the emergency difficulty adjustment, but it is making things harder to transact on Bitcoin Cash. And it kind of gives you an idea of why they want to change the emergency difficulty adjustment. They get like all of these blocks that come really, really quickly when it's more profitable on Bitcoin Cash, but it then slows to a crawl for like 12 hours, and then there's an emergency difficulty adjustment. Anyway, I did take a look at the code. It looks like what they're going to do is they're going to make it so that it's sort of like a moving average of sorts. And it can only adjust maximum of like double the speed or half the speed based on how many blocks are being found. And it's done on a block by block basis, which is going to cause some interesting things because it'll sort of fluctuate. Mining pools, I imagine, will have to change their software a little bit at least to sort of figure out on a block by block basis. I think right now what miners do is they just sort of look at it from like a, not like a block by block basis, but they just sort of switch manually between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. Anyway, as you can see, the price, I did tell you that was probably like, unsustainable. You can see kind of the blow off top kind of nature of that. It was just, it looks like it was just sort of a major sell-off right after it reached its peak, which to me is crazy. It went above 0.5, and then it crashed, and then now it's trading right at around 0.2 or so. And I'm not going to get into technicals. I think you should definitely watch Tone's channel if you're interested in that. But that's this pump of Bitcoin Cash hasn't lasted quite as long. We'll see what happens in the next few days, especially with this difficulty adjustment coming. Maybe the market is sort of waiting for what's going to happen after 4.5 hours, and then they'll be able to figure it out. But it's fairly clear that that top was pretty dramatic. I mean, going up to 0.52. I mean, that's insane. All right, so you can see sort of the reflection of what happened over the weekend in this hash rate chart. You can see that at one point, Bitcoin Cash overtook Bitcoin in hash rate, and this is kind of crazy that it overtook it for a while, and sort of at its most dramatic point, it was sort of beating it almost 2 to 1. Kind of crazy, right? Like 6.84, 3.43. That's a lot of hash power that went over to Bitcoin Cash because it was so profitable. But then, soon as the difficulty adjustment hit, it started dropping like crazy, and that's what's going on. It's now way more profitable to mine on Bitcoin as opposed to the reverse that happened over the weekend. That affected some other things. You can see the mempool here. it was pretty dramatic over the weekend. We had some fees that we had never seen on the network before. And you can see, like, as more miners came back, the mempool started dropping dramatically. You can see all of these color bands sort of being eaten into by miners. And you know, it's going to be very profitable to mine Bitcoin right now. And I'll show you some stats to confirm that. But I mean, look at how much in fees there still are out there. And it's still at sort of very historic levels of, you know, how much you can make as a miner on Bitcoin. And you can see, yeah, these bands are, you know, some of them will disappear. I don't know, like it really depends on how hash power sort of interacts with this new difficulty adjustment algorithm in Bitcoin Cash. All right, so this is kind of a crazy block, one of the blocks that happened over the weekend. But check it out. It was received a day ago. This was yesterday. Look at the fees, 13.4. That's greater than the mining reward. Okay, that's in addition to the mining award, which is kind of crazy. But that's what's happening, is that there were so many fees in this particular block. So many of sort of these high fee transactions that got eaten in. I'm gonna guess that it's probably like this one right here, that like mostly transactions that were like over 1,000 Satoshi per byte, or, you know, 800 to 1,000, 700, 800. Those are really, really high fees. But that's what got in. It was greater. To my knowledge, this is sort of the first one where there wasn't some sort of a mistake in fees or something like that caused, you know, like this is like cumulative over all of the transactions, where the total fees were greater than the amount of mining reward. And to be truthful, this is sort of what we have to rely on once the mining award of 12.5 right now, but, you know, reducing to 6.25 and then 3.125 in about 7 years or so. Around then, we're going to start seeing more blocks, a lot more blocks like this, and I imagine they'll be the majority in about 7 years or so, where the fees have to sort of sustain the miner, you know, subsidize the miner enough that they have to keep going. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a crazy development. I did not expect one happen so soon, but given sort of the craziness around Bitcoin, it's not really a surprise. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin Gold. Their mainnet has launched, and, you know, you can kind of take a look at what's going on with Bitcoin Gold. Yeah, I mean, they're launched. They have this block explorer here, and you can see that there aren't that many transactions as far. I don't know. It might be a bug on the website, but they almost always just show like the mining award, it looks like. But anyway, there are some transactions going through, and you know, this is you know, it's launched. It's right now, let's see, around $265 apparently, but it's not traded on many exchanges yet. It's mostly Bitfinex and HitBTC and Binance, I guess. I've never really heard of Binance, but yeah, it's you know, sort of prices are a little bit all over the place. There is liquidity now. They haven't figured out the market cap though. That shouldn't be very hard. I would love to see it on the crypto coin market cap chart, so we can sort of figure out, hey, these guys are you know, number whatever. But yeah, I imagine it's in the top 10 at this price. And of course, they did do like an 8,000 block pre-mine of 12.5 coins, which ends up being like 100,000 of these. So that's like 27 million right now that they pre-mined. I mean, I've been saying this for a while. Hard forks are sort of going to be the new way to launch altcoins, and they certainly figured out a way to do it, and, you know, keep 27 million or whatever for development purposes. That's kind of an innovation. All right. And finally, I want to sort of give you a preview of the article I will be publishing after this daily show. Segwit2x Post-Mortem, Divorce of Crypto Austrians and Crypto Keynesians. I've sort of made this analogy before on some of the other shows, but basically it goes through sort of reasoning about what exactly happened and why things happened the way they did. I go through sort of, I define these new terms, crypto Keynesian and crypto Austrian. I go through some of the conflict, and the main conflict being businesses versus holders. And I try to come to some sort of a conclusion. I mean, I don't recap much of what happened. For that, I think you can take a look at this very handy scalability debate, timeline. This pretty thorough, except maybe at the end because it doesn't have sort of all of the stuff that happened since August. But pretty much everything before that. I mean, I found this on a Japanese website, but it's very, very thorough. But yeah, that should give you something of a pretty good overview of what's going on. Anyway, wow, that was a lot of stuff. I want to thank the 207 live viewers. Please give me a thumbs up and a share if you want other people to find content like this. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on. I didn't even get to Rick Falfigne's letter from the CEO of Bitcoin Cash. I mean, we could talk about that, I guess, but it's not that big a deal, I don't think. Yeah, so let's get to a few questions, and then I'll end my daily show. Let's see. I will post all of these websites on below the video after it's done. Let's see. Yeah, I guess I should mention that a lot of the transactions in the mempool might be spam. I don't know. It's difficult to tell, but that's definitely a possibility. Let's see. Can you elaborate more on the coming difficulty adjustment and the possible outcome on Bitcoin Cash price? Yeah, great question. I did study the difficulty adjustment algorithm a little bit. They had like 3 candidates, and then they chose one of them, and it looks like some sort of weighted average. The code has some constants that I couldn't track down at the moment. But anyway, I'll do a more thorough analysis and maybe try to get out an article later this week. But essentially, yeah, they are changing it, and it will adjust block by block. And that means, like miners are going to have to be much more sophisticated about which chain to mine on, just given like the fees that are available on Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, and which side to mine on and stuff. I mean, if the mempool gets high enough, as we saw over the weekend, it's even if Bitcoin Cash is very easy to mine, it still might not be enough all the nice juicy fees that a miner is able to get on Bitcoin. So those algorithms, I imagine, will need some changing and figuring out, because it's just so profitable. It was over the weekend to mine Bitcoin, and I think a lot of them, like, it was only at its height, Bitcoin Cash was only like 70% more profitable to mine than Bitcoin. Or I think at its very peak, it might have been more like 150% or something like that. But I mean, you saw that one transaction. It was like 13 BTC and fees. So like the total award was like 25 or 26, which is insanely high. That's a lot of award. And at the time, I think Bitcoin was trading at like 5,800. I mean, it's and talk about one great profitable thing to do. Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin, by the way, has been going up for the past few, I mean, for about, I don't know, like the last 12 hours or so. It's now trading at like 65, 60. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we'll see exactly how how things will shake out. I'll certainly be watching. Maybe if it makes sense, I'll go live when the Bitcoin Cash hard fork happens. There is some small possibility that Bitcoin Cash hard fork will result in two chains. Depends on who's actually mining and whether or not mining with the emergency difficulty adjustment makes sense. The interesting thing about hard forking here is that if you stay on the old fork, you could potentially have really cheap or really easy to mine blocks, especially if the emergency difficulty adjustment just keeps kicking in. Like, so if you're a miner and you just mine one block like every 12 hours or something, and then or 6 blocks every 12 hours, something like that, you can just continuously make the EDA go down. And then at that point, you can mine like whenever you want. Like, you can essentially control that network, because difficulty will be really, really low if you do that over, I don't know, like 2 or 3 days or something like that. It'll be well, it'll probably be more than 2 or 3 days, maybe like a week. After that, it'll be so easy to mine, you can do it anytime you want. And who knows? That might spur sort of a fork. I don't know. But we'll see how united or I guess some might say centralized the Bitcoin Cash community is. So we'll be looking out for that as well. Anyway, yeah, it was it's been great. Thank you to the 221 viewers that watched this live. And you know, as I always say at the end, this song is done.